Emotional intelligence, or a lack thereof, shows up in almost every single workplace interaction. And you've probably worked with a technically brilliant leader who leaves a wake of destruction behind him or her. So, what is emotional intelligence? How do we use it? Discussion about that is coming up now. Hi there, I'm Andrea Adams. This is the HR Hub, and on the show we talk about anything related to HR. I encourage you to please subscribe to the show or to the podcast to keep learning from my awesome guests. So today my guest is Jen Shirkani. Jen's an emotional intelligence expert and an executive coach with over 25 years of experience working with organizations ranging from Fortune 50 to family-owned businesses. She's the author of Ego versus EQ and Choose Resilience. Hi, Jen. How are you?
Hi, Andrea. I'm good. Thank you for having me.
Well, thanks for coming on. Today, we're going to talk about emotional intelligence and organizational behavior, like that person I was describing in the intro. But before we get there, why has emotional intelligence become such a big topic in the workplace? Like, this is a relatively recent phenomenon. It wasn't really a thing when I started my career, but sure is now.
Yeah, I agree. It's something that's kind of grown in interest and awareness that people are learning more about. And I think it's so relevant because it's filled with practical skills. It helps you take who you are and kind of brings out the best in you and minimizes the worst in you. And it's helpful, like you said, in all scenarios. So it helps you at work, but it also helps you at home. It helps you when you're working with a leader or employees, or it helps you if you're working with colleagues. And it's universally beneficial. Like, it doesn't matter what your role is or what your industry is, every single person can benefit from having more emotional intelligence.
So are there components to emotional intelligence? And if so, what are those components?
So if we define overall emotional intelligence, I use what I call the 3 Rs. So it's first recognizing yourself, knowing you, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses, but also knowing your moods and how your moods might be affecting you, or your personality type, or your communication style. All of that self-knowledge is the first piece, which is recognizing. Then it's reading others. So, that saying, situational awareness, reading the room. So it's picking up signals that other people send that might be nonverbal. It's realizing how this other person likes to communicate. It's sensing your audience and then responding appropriately for that person or situation. So it's having some interpersonal adaptability from person to person. So it's recognize, read, and respond. That's kind of the overarching competency.
Okay.
Then there's skills that make up. You have to have a skill set in order to recognize, read, and respond. I like to use one. It's actually a Canadian assessment called the EQI 2.0. It's published by Multi Health Systems. And they go through 15 EQ skills that you can develop.
Okay, so can we go through each of those levels that you went through? Recognize, read, and respond. What are the skills associated with each of them? So let's start with recognize.
So recognize is heavily dependent on having high self-awareness. And there's 2 types of self-awareness. There's emotional self-awareness. This is understanding how you're feeling, why you're feeling it, how it's affecting you, what your moods are. And then there's social self-awareness, which is, how do other people see me? What are the perceptions that I leave people with? If they had to describe me, is the way I think I am the way they see me? So we've got self and social self-awareness. That's kind of the foundation. So we usually, like, if I were doing any kind of coaching or we want to develop emotional intelligence, this is always where it starts, is higher self-awareness, because we all have blind spots. These are things that we do that we don't realize we're doing, or old habits we might have. Or we see ourselves the way we might have been years ago instead of who we are today. The second piece of reading requires empathy. And that is not just empathy the way we think of it, like I feel your pain, I'm with you, I'm walking in your shoes, but cognitive empathy, which is I can appreciate why you feel a certain way, even if I would never feel that way myself. I can have empathy without feeling what you're feeling because I can then understand why it feels that way for you. So that's the goal there on me.
Can can I stop you there at the
Yeah.
cognitive versus emotional empathy?
Yeah.
Like, when do we need to be using emotional empathy, and
Mhm.
when do we need to be using cognitive empathy?
Well, I mean, I think if it's possible to have emotional empathy, meaning I've had the same experience you have,
Mm,
then that's great because, we have a bond that we've connected on something that we've both experienced. But what I find is that there's times that I don't have that experience. How can I show empathy to you if I've never been laid off, for example? How can I show
mm,
empathy to you if I've never lost a child or a spouse? So now I have to have cognitive empathy, which is, can I appreciate why it feels the way it does, even if I've never felt that personally myself? So it's a way to show empathy without feeling empathy.
mm,
I think in our day to day, empathy shows up when people get upset about things that are to us maybe a little bit more trivial. They're
mhm,
upset, like I had a client who said that, one of the things they offer every week is a food truck that comes and gives lunch to everybody once a week as like a perk for the company. And the
mhm.
truck broke down and they didn't come. And so they notified all the employees, heads up, the truck's not coming this week. And people were really upset by that. And I think there are some people, especially maybe some senior leaders who are like, really? This is going to be upsetting to you? Like
Yes,
just go get
yes,
lunch, right? What is the big deal?
yes.
Um, so those are the times that we have to use that cognitive empathy and say, okay, why would this be so upsetting to them when to me this feels very minor?
Yeah, okay, so we were
Mhm.
at read.
Yes. And then
Is there anything else to read?
read is primarily empathy. That's the main skill there. And then
Okay.
some social awareness, right? Situational awareness. So it's feeling the mood of the room when you walk into it. It is paying attention to someone else and noticing, for example, is this someone who likes a lot of facts and detail when I present something to them? Or is this somebody who wants more stories and testimonials? So it's being able to read others in the way that they like to make decisions or the way that they like to communicate so that I
Mm,
better understand the way they're wired.
yeah, we'll get to the next one is the responding. This is the
Yes,
one. This is where it all
responding.
comes together.
It does. You're
Okay.
right. And this is where self control really comes in because sometimes self control we associate with not saying or doing inappropriate things, like controlling our impulses,
Yeah.
which is valid. We do need to do that sometimes. But other times we have to control our impulse to speak up and share something without necessarily being invited or asked to. And this is a way that we can be present in a room, in a meeting. We're not the quiet one sitting in the corner taking notes, but we're actively participating and sharing opinions.
Okay, so some of that just seems really hard. So, and I know that there are some people out there that this just comes to easier than others. So, how much of this can we learn? How much is just natural? And and I guess we have to talk about the learning part. How do we go about learning it?
So the good news about emotional intelligence is it can be learned.
Mhm.
And that is one thing that has really drawn me to this topic because this is something everybody can develop, everybody can learn. It's mixed as far as the way people can learn these skills, but a lot of it starts with that self-awareness piece. So I recommend people taking like a multi-rater or a 360 assessment.
Mm.
And there are assessments on emotional intelligence. So people ask me all the time, can this be measured? Can we test it? Yes, it's like an IQ test. You can take an
Hmm.
EQ test, and that EQ test will give you tangible, quantifiable scores on your overall emotional intelligence and the categories within there. So you get a score on your empathy and on your self control. And that can be really helpful. That's a great place to start. We do a lot of coaching. Coaching helps a lot because it
Oh, yeah.
it challenges people's instincts, like they're behaving a certain way and they don't even realize they're doing it. And we can kind of highlight, hey, did you notice when you said this? This is when the room kind of turned the other way and you lost them. What I find is that in many cases, my coaching isn't, hey, do this new thing or try this other new way to behave, but it's stop doing this so much.
Oh,
We overuse our strengths. It's our core, right? It's what we do, it's how we're known, it may be what we got promoted on. So anytime anything comes up, it's my go-to behavior. And
ugh.
sometimes, right, any strength overused can hurt us as much as not using it at all.
I know what mine is.
What is it?
It's I'm too positive.
Oh, optimism. That's an EQ skill.
Um, Optimism is an EQ skill?
It is.
It is an EQ skill, but
Yes.
overused?
Overuse. So there's another skill on the EQI that pairs with optimism. It's called reality testing. Seeing things the way they really are and not the way we want them to be.
Are these
So
part
those
of
need to be
the
in balance.
respond skills?
Yes, these can be part of the response skills and even part of the self-awareness because
Mm,
what can happen is someone asks you to do something, and if your optimism is really high, you tell yourself, yeah, I can do that. Yeah,
yes,
I can make time for that,
exactly.
right?
That's
I've
exactly
got
what
the
I do.
skills to do
Yes.
it or the time to do it. But then when it comes right to it, we sometimes overestimate how much we can get done. And so it's a mix of the saying yes too much sometimes, saying yes to everything, and the misestimation of what we're capable of doing. So reality testing, if your optimism is high, your reality testing is lower, which is seeing things without bias, then you are more programmed to see the best in everything. And you might do this with employees. I see this happen a lot, especially with HR, where I might have an employee who I see so much potential in. I know exactly what they're capable of, but they're not performing. And I tell myself, they just need a little more time. They just need a little bit more coaching. They'll get there. They'll get there. Right. But the signs are all saying it's not going to happen. And that high optimism might cause me to stick in there, hang in there, work with them longer, wish, 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 hope, hope, hope. But 6 months later, here I am having to have a, you know, very hard conversation about whether they're going to make it or not.
Mhm. Are there any others, skills that work that way with, like, where they
Mhm.
kinda go together? Are they
Yes. So another one is empathy, which we
Mhm.
talked about earlier, right?
Yep.
That's reading others. It pairs with assertiveness. And we need those two in balance, right? Because I see leaders with very high empathy, which empathy gets a lot of good press. We should be
Totally does.
empathetic, right? Everyone's like,
Totally does.
we need empathy. Great press for empathy. But too much empathy, if I'm a leader, can result in me not delegating enough because I know this person's overworked already. I know they might have
Mhm.
something going on at home. I feel bad. So I don't give them this other project they really should be doing. Or I have a hard time giving them critical feedback because I don't want to hurt their feelings. They're very sensitive and I don't want to do that. So I don't give them the feedback they need to hear. Too much assertiveness without the empathy might be someone who's very forceful. They might be very blunt. They might just say what's on their mind and not realize the impact that's going to have on the people around them. So I need both. Assertiveness gives me the boundaries, when it comes to empathy so people don't take advantage of me being so empathetic. And empathy is kind of the cushion for being assertive. So it doesn't look like it's all about me. I'm also considering the impact I'm having on the people around me.
I see this like all the time. But on both sides of the table, like assertive
Yeah.
people are going to say, this is the best way to be. I'm getting the job done.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
enough with the feelings. And the empathetic people are going to be saying, about the big thing about the
Have a heart.
possibility in that person. Oh, well, just give them a little bit more time. We've got to
Mm.
work with them. We've got to,
Mhm.
you know,
Yes. You need to have a healthy level of both so that you can use either one comfortably when the time comes. I think we all have a predisposition toward having one of those two higher. I will say that based on personality and communication style, some hardwired things in us. We might be more predetermined to want to have more empathy or more assertiveness, but it's again recognizing which one of those two do I fall on in my comfort zone, which one am I is my go-to, and then how do I read the situation and decide if it's okay right now to use that skill or I need to pull back on it and pick up the other one a little bit more.
how do you do like in the moment, in how do you learn to flex one and soften the other, and I mean, in a split second without it just being intuitive. Like, that seems very hard skills to learn.
It's not. I know it seems hard. I know because
It seem hard.
it sounds simple, but it is very sophisticated. Um, and it's a lot of it is being present in the moment. We get so busy on a Zoom call. We're all our emails up on the other screen. We're always looking at something else, our phone, our watch, all of that is distracting us constantly. And it's really working hard to just be present in the moment so that while you're communicating, the whole time you're processing. How am I feeling right now? How is this coming across? Let me watch their body language. I might need to adjust that a little bit. I'm going sideways here. I need to get back on track. Let me ask for permission to try and explain it again differently. So if you're just purely present, it's a lot easier than trying to do it while you're multitasking,
Oh, right.
which we all do. So,
Which we
I
all
mean,
do.
I get
Yes.
it. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
Mm.
Um, are there any other pairs? I wanna know about all the tension in this.
There's one more pairing that I'll
Okay.
talk about, and that one goes with the first R, emotional self-awareness. So that is that knowing your moods, how you're feeling, why you're feeling it.
Mhm.
That one pairs with emotional expression. Am I sharing how I'm feeling, why I'm feeling it with others? And I will say, I got certified in this EQI tool 22 years ago now, 23 years ago. And use it regularly. I have looked at thousands of these reports. And I will say in the last probably 7 years, emotional expression has gone down overall with clients in any industry, any role. It doesn't seem to matter. We're seeing a decline in emotional expression.
Why do you think?
I think people don't feel safe to share what they really truly feel. I think that there's a perceived risk of sharing how we really feel. And the temptation then is to say nothing. I'm just going to keep this to myself. The downside of lower emotional expression, which makes me harder to read, if I'm not sharing what I'm feeling, you might see something on my face that I'm not articulating what it is. Now you're going to guess. Now you're going to assume what I'm feeling. Or I'm very reserved. If I don't show any emotion at all, now I'm hindering your ability to use EQ with me because you're trying to recognize, read me, and then respond differently, but I'm not giving you anything to go on.
Is this I want to ask, and I could be wrong, but is this sort of a factor of two things? One, polarization of the sort of the political climate, but also DEI, where, um, and I'll say I'm a DEI proponent, but I know of so many people that are biting their tongues because they don't want to risk offending somebody.
Mhm.
So they just don't say it.
Yes, I think those are both factors. And I also think um, fear is a driving factor. In the US, we have a couple of states that are very litigious, that
Mm,
employers have so many rules that are
mhm,
pro-employee, and managers are afraid to give constructive feedback because the employee is going to come back and claim, hey, you're creating a hostile work environment for me
mhm.
because you're criticizing me all the time. And so that makes them spooked. That scares them from wanting to share
Yeah,
valid
yeah,
constructive feedback
yeah.
out of fear of retaliation or being accused of something they haven't done.
I'm seeing that too in like as a consultant.
Mhm,
I will help employers with terminations.
mhm,
And so I'm seeing that more less discipline, less
mhm,
progressive discipline, which really it is kind of a stinky process, but
mhm,
it's a process for telling people how to improve. They're skipping that because they don't want to do that. Going
mhm.
straight to termination.
Wow.
They don't want to tell people. They're just going to walk them out the door.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there's a lot of reasons, I think valid reasons for it, but there is an element of trust that's lost. If I can't follow what you're thinking, and sometimes as a leader, another EQ skill is independence. And if I'm highly independent, I'm out making decisions and doing things, but I'm not communicating to you what I'm doing, why I'm doing it. So now I'm questioning your motive. So there's a whole trust element that comes into play with emotional expression.
Mhm.
The more I can share with you, the more you can trust that my intentions are what they are, and I'm not left to guess. You're not left to guess.
Mhm.
So, if you want to raise trust in a relationship, you're going to have to share a little bit more what's going on behind the scenes. And ideally, your emotional self awareness is a little higher than your emotional expression so that when you express it, it's valid. You've thought it through, you know what it is. I've had reports where emotional expression is very high and awareness is low. So I'm just like giving you my immediate thought without even thinking it through
Saying it like it
myself.
is,
Yeah, just
wearing
like,
my heart on my sleeve.
right. And then I
Yes.
might sleep on it and the next day be like, why was I so mad about that? Or what was I so happy about with that? Like now that I've thought about it, why did I react that way? That's somebody with higher expression and lower awareness.
Mhm.
So it can go either way.
'Kay. What does, role does EI play or emotional intelligence play in how HR is handling conflict, which
Mm,
is there's quite a bit of that,
yeah,
and then change, there is a ton of
ton
that.
of change. Yeah. Okay, on the conflict side. So you brought up DEI earlier. And in theory, if we are going to have
Yep.
more diversity of thought, right? More diversity of approach. That's the goal of DEI
Mhm.
is to bring in different ways of looking at things and adding value that way. Then naturally we're going to have more conflict. In fact, we should have more conflict. If we don't, then we're not taking advantage of the whole point of having diverse opinions in the
Right,
workplace, right?
right.
So we have to get better at what productive conflict looks like. We have to get better at moving toward consensus, which means not everyone's going to be happy, but everyone can at least agree that the process we followed to make the decision was fair, people felt heard, and now they can
Mhm.
support the decision even if they wouldn't do it that way themselves. And I was reminded of this. I have a client, and their CEO is quite fiery. I'll say that.
Mhm. Yeah.
He's a firecracker, okay? So he's very loud and he's very willing to just, put things out there. And um I was coaching one of his direct reports and he shared a story about a team meeting they were in, and Somebody challenged the CEO on a decision that he was making, and it got very heated and very loud. And it ended with them screaming at each other in this meeting. In fact, the direct report said to the CEO, "I think you're an idiot." And I guess the whole room kind of went, he just called the bosses an idiot. And they worked through it, got through the meeting. After the meeting, my coachee went to the CEO and said, "How did you feel about that, comment to you?" And he goes, "I loved it. I loved it because it means he cares about this. It means he's ready to fight me on something he feels is really important. And that is what I need. I don't need a group of people that are just going to say, 'Yes, sir. Okay. Whatever you say, sir.' I want leaders who will come in and challenge me." It was the best meeting we've had in a long time. Like, it was totally opposite of what he was expecting to hear. And I thought, that's it. That's it right there, right? He's willing to be challenged, and he's setting that as an example, and he's role modeling that for the organization. And they can have that out and turn around and shake hands and go back to work and move on. That's great. We have to make a case for conflict instead of shying away from it all the time, instead of focusing on how destructive it can be. There's some real power in conflict. So if we can learn how to harness that and challenge it and role model it, all the better.
Okay. We're at the end of this. If an HR professional out there wanted to build more emotional intelligence into their organization, where would you tell them to start, and where should they find you?
Okay, so my favorite way to integrate emotional intelligence into an organization is through interviewing and hiring. Because I can teach EQ, but if I can hire it, I'm bringing it in from the start. So I have a whole methodology around interviewing for emotional intelligence, and I've got some free resources on that on my podcast. It's also on my website. We have an article link there. I have LinkedIn pages, articles on this, because this is such a proactive way to take EQ and bring it in. So that would be one way. I would also say, look at your performance reviews, because a lot of companies have a formal document that they measure employees on. I will bet money there's factors in there that are around emotional intelligence. So look and see, how are people doing with teamwork and collaboration, with conflict? Those are EQ skills. So we can build some training around those for those that are scoring lower on an annual review there. You can also look at EQ when it comes to promoting people. Are we looking at their flexibility and their stress tolerance and their impulse control, instead of just saying, are they technically strong? So you can weave in EQ into your succession planning as well.
Yes, I think that's very important.
And
where can they find you?
So I'm on LinkedIn. I'm on YouTube. I have my own podcast called Ego versus EQ and You. So there's a lot of ways to get, and I have sample assessments on my website as well. So you can download the EQI and take a look at it and see the 15 skills that make up the composite.
Okay. Yeah, I might do that. There was a lot. Well, thanks, Jen. That was great. I'm thinking about the recognize, read, and respond. There is a lot to this, and that helps break it down a little bit. I did a number of episodes on mediation, which I bet would take a lot of emotional intelligence. Link to that is on the side or in my list of episodes. Thanks for watching out there. We'll see you next time.